So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our final parent information session of the week. It's been a busy week. I'd like to thank all of our administrators on the call this evening. Each of our principals have held a parent meeting at their own buildings as well. We appreciate all of the community members that participated in our meetings this week. We hope that you find tonight helpful. And if you attended earlier this week, we hope that you find that meeting or those meetings helpful as well. All of the meetings up until that were done through yesterday are up on the website, and we should get links for the meetings that happened today, including this one this evening, up on the website tomorrow. So I'd like to introduce quickly our panelists that are joining us. We have Deputy Superintendent Sam Schneider, Executive Director for Curriculum, Instruction, and Professional Personnel, Dr. Lori Kerner. We have Deb Rogers, Principal of Phillips Avenue. We have Tom Payton, Principal Roanoke Avenue. Sean O'Hara, Principal of Riverhead High School. Dr. Steve Hudson, Principal of Riverhead Middle School. Brian Miltenberg, Principal of Aquabog Elementary. Dave Enos, Principal of Riley Avenue. Gary Carlson, Assistant Principal of Aquabog. Allison Conroy, Assistant Principal at Phillips Avenue. Dr. Maria Casamassa, ELA Director. Jason Rockcamp, Fine Arts Director. Denise Stevenson, Director of ENL 5-8 and World Languages. And she's also serving as our moderator, and she has done so very well, might I add, all week. We've kept her very busy. We have Ryan Jacobellis, our Director of Facilities. And Terry Colhane, our Director of Security. And am I missing anyone? I think that's all I see on the screen. Okay. So tonight we're going to share with you our general overview of what reopening will look like. We know that this is a difficult time for families. Lots of decisions needed to be made in the past couple of weeks. And September 3rd will be here before we know it, which will be our official first day of school. The principals and administrators on the call tonight, as well as those that aren't joining us, everyone's been working very hard to develop specific plans for their buildings, which all follow the guidelines that we're presenting tonight. So without any further ado, let me share my screen. Okay. So at the end of the presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask questions. So we just ask that you listen to the presentation before you enter your questions, because some of the questions that you may have may be answered throughout the presentation. So we'll start with elementary information. It's a very difficult decision parents had to make to decide which of two options they wanted their children to follow as we open school. Of course, safety and security, health and safety are our primary focus for opening and returning students and staff to school. And we want nothing more than to bring our students back full-time, 5 days a week. But in order to keep everyone safe and socially distant, we cannot accommodate a full-time schedule. So at the elementary level, there are two cohorts, Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday for in-person instruction. There will be 12 to 14 desks in a classroom, spaced out at least 6 feet apart. Students will remain in their classrooms for most of the day. Specials will push into classrooms like art, music, library. Physical education will be outdoors as often as possible. If they can't, because of weather, if we can't be outside, we'll use the classroom or the gymnasium, depending on where there's space. Breakfast and lunch will be in classrooms primarily. The building principals, depending on the size of the cafeteria, some are more equipped to have more students in the cafeteria than others. For the buildings that do not have that much space in their cafeteria to keep the students socially distanced, They will be trying to rotate classes through the cafeteria throughout the week. So the students will eat their lunch sometimes in the classroom and sometimes in the cafeteria in the buildings that can't fit all of the students. Recess, like physical education, will be held outdoors as often as possible. Aside from the 2 days of in-person instruction, the students then will have 3 days of remote at-home learning. Their classroom teacher that they see when they're in person will be able to check in for 20 to 30 minutes a day when they're home on remote learning. And that time could be any time during the school day, because the teachers also have their own students that are in person at the same time. So the principals are working on a schedule to provide the teachers with 20 to 30 minutes of relief time with a substitute to go into the classroom or another staff member, so that they can check in with the students that are at home. So students should be checking in on a daily basis when they're home on remote instruction into Seesaw if they're in grades K1 and 2, or Google Classroom if they're in grades 3 through 6 on the elementary basis. A check-in is just that. They need to, at the very least, check in so the teacher knows that they did check in that day, and then work will be posted that they will have to complete. We understand that families have different schedules, and in some cases, parents are working and they want to log in to Seesaw or Google Classroom in the evening when they get home from work, and that is perfectly fine. That is okay to do. The lessons will be there as long as each child checks in once during that day, and up until 11:59 p.m. would be fine. For the students, the families that are choosing for their children full remote or virtual, the students will be grouped by grade level, and that could be across schools. Thank you to everyone who answered the survey, and for the families that didn't answer the survey, if you want to call the school that your child attends, and they will take the information from you so that we have an accurate account of what your wishes are for your children. So we will be assigning all students in elementary that are opting for full remote or virtual instruction a teacher from the district by grade level. So students may be in a class with students from other schools, but they will all be working with the same teacher remotely. That teacher will do check-ins throughout the day through Google Meet. It may not necessarily be the same teacher that the child will have if they return to the building for in-person instruction. And that teacher will also do some recorded instruction and post those assignments, those lessons on Seesaw or Google Classroom. And we know that this is a difficult decision, and we wanted to provide as much flexibility as we could to families. So if a family is choosing the hybrid model, which is a combination of in-person as well as remote learning, and they want to switch to virtual, or virtual families want to switch to hybrid, please let the building principals know, and they will work to make that change for you. Please give us 5 to 7 school days to make that happen. We want to make sure that we have everything set to go for any changes that families make. For elementary students, if they receive AIS in math or reading, or resource room services, English as a new language services, speech, OT, PT, counseling, those services will be provided during in-person instruction as well as during remote learning. Our self-contained students in 8-1, 12-1, or 15-1 classes on the elementary level, they will attend 4 days a week on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. On Wednesdays, teachers will be checking in with their students, and they will also be using that time to record lessons for the days that their students are home on remote instruction. The teachers will be attending building meetings, because there are still conversations that need to be had regarding students and making sure we're meeting their needs. Also, professional development opportunities for teachers will be provided so that they can continue to provide the best instruction remotely as well as in person. On the secondary level, our classes, some of our classes in grades 7 through 12 have upwards to 30, 32, even 33 students in them. Some classes are smaller than that, but when we look at a class roster of 30 students and we can only socially distance 12 to 14 students in a classroom at a time, we realized that we needed to divide our 7 through 12 students into 3 cohorts or 3 groups. So the hybrid model on the secondary level will revolve around a 6-day cycle with the students attending 2 consecutive days in that cycle. So assuming there are no holidays in the course of a month, one cohort may start on a Monday, Tuesday in person, and then they will stay home until the following week when they will come in on Tuesday, Wednesday in person, and then they will stay home until the following week where they'll come in on Wednesday, Thursday in person. So all of these schedules will be shared with families, mailed out by the end of next week. You may not receive them possibly until September 1st, is possible, so don't worry. It's a work in progress. There's a lot of information that our buildings are getting out to families, and they want to make sure that they have the most accurate information about where the students are being placed. So going back to the 6-day cycle for grades 7 through 12, the students will change classes. They will follow a full 8-period day when they're in person. The students will eat in the cafeteria. They will be socially distanced, so the students that can't fit in the cafeteria at the time in the high school situation will overflow into the auditorium, and the students will be cycled through so that everyone has the opportunity to sit in the cafeteria during that period and eat their meals. At the middle school, there's plenty of room in the cafeteria for the students to be socially distanced while they eat their lunch during their lunch period. At the high school, juniors and seniors can leave campus with parent-guardian permission. Please know that anytime a student re-enters the building, they're going to go through the same health checks that they would have gone through at the beginning of the day. And I'll get into that a little more in a bit. So for grades 7 through 12, the teachers are going to spend part of their in-person lesson when they have students in front of them recording through Screencastify, which is a video of their smartboard screen. So just like I'm showing you slides right now, some of the slides that the teachers are creating for their lessons will be recorded with a voiceover done by the teacher as they have students in front of them. That recording will be put into Google Classroom, which is the platform that our students in grades 7 through 12 will be using. And the students will be able to access that at some point in the school day and then following days as well. So please know that a teacher may be teaching a class for the first time that day, 8th period. So that's when that lesson will be recorded. So don't expect them to post that lesson until after the school day ends. And that's okay. Just like I mentioned on the elementary level, the students will need to check in, and they can do so up until 11:59 p.m. And get credit for attendance for that day. So the teachers will be posting additional assignments as well to supplement the instruction for the students when they're home, but they will also get a daily recording. For the secondary students in grades 7 through 12 that will be on a full remote or full virtual model, they are going to still be on their teacher's roster, and they are going to be able to access those lessons that are recorded every day. So please know that some electives, especially at the high school level, may not be available for the full remote option because they may require some materials or access to certain computer programs that can only be accessed when they're physically at school. So when the schedules go home, you may see a modification as to what your child may have requested if they're on full remote in regards to electives. So assignments, besides the recorded instruction, assignments will be posted daily on Google Classroom. And just like we mentioned for elementary, secondary families, you have the choice as well if you'd like to move back into a hybrid model, which allows your children to attend in person 2 days and then 4 days in the cycle remote. So please just give the principals notice, and they will make that adjustment in 5 to 7 school days. So grading and attendance, I alluded to some of this already. The students K through 12, we're going back to report card grades as usual. So the same report cards that you were used to a year ago will be in place again. So for grades 5 through 12, they will get 4 report cards a year, November, January, April, and June. And our K4 students will get 3 report cards a year in December, March, and June. Attendance will be taken on a daily basis, whether they're in person or remote. In person is much easier and simpler. If the student appears to the teacher in the class, then they will get credit for attending that class, just as they did prior. If it's a remote day or if they're on full remote, as long as the student logs into their platform, which is Seesaw for grades K through 2 and Google Classroom for grades 3 through 12, if they log in at any point during the day, up until 11:59 p.m., they will be able to get credit for attending that day. Now, attendance is different from the report card grade. So just because a student logs in and they check what their assignments are, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have a good report card grade. They have to do the work that's in Google Classroom or Seesaw and complete it satisfactorily with the teacher reviewing their work in order for them to get a report card grade that would be passing or a good grade. It depends on their effort. So encourage your students to do the work, do their best effort, and their report card grades will reflect that. So regarding cohorts in grades K through 6, the principals are working together between the K4 principals with Pulaski Street principal, Mr. Burke, and assistant principal, Ms. Lonergan, to put siblings in the same cohort so that they will attend in person on the same days, Monday and Tuesday, or Thursday and Friday. However, if you would prefer that they are on different days, please let the principals know. For grades 7 through 12, again, siblings will be placed in the same cohort unless otherwise requested, and those cohorts are determined alphabetically to the extent possible, and they're looking at last names A through F, G through N, and O through Z as the 3 cohorts. But please know, as the students are being scheduled for 7 classes a day, and the 8th period is lunch, and some students, they may even have a full 8-period day of instruction, that the principals are looking at each section to make sure that if they divide it by the alphabet, they can fit all of those students in the classroom socially distanced. So there may be some exceptions to the AFGNOZ configuration if a student needs to be placed in another cohort in order to balance the class sizes. All of this information regarding what cohort your child's in, who the elementary teachers are, who the virtual teachers will be, all of that information will be mailed home on the elementary level by the end of next week. I believe on the secondary level, on the first day of school, the students will be able to access the portal and see their schedules. But we do have the principals with us so they can clarify some things at the end of this presentation as well. Mask protocols. The health and safety of our staff and students is our #1 priority during this difficult time. So we are requiring all staff and students to wear masks throughout the day. These face coverings or masks must be worn when the students get on the school bus, enter the building, walk through the hallways, sit in the classroom, common areas. Even if they're going into the cafeteria, if they're getting lunch, a school lunch, and they're online to pick up that lunch, they need to wear masks during that time. Only when they sit down, either in the cafeteria or the classroom to eat their meal, can they take the mask off, provided that they are at least 6 feet apart and proper social distance. So we are also offering mask breaks throughout the day. It's a long time for students to wear a mask. It's difficult for us as adults to wear masks that long. And we recognize that students, as they've been home for almost 6 months, they probably haven't had the need to wear a mask for that many hours a day. So we ask that you get them used to that, make them understand that it is important that they wear those masks. It is for the safety of others and themselves. So the mask breaks on elementary level will be every 30 minutes. They'll get a 3-minute mask break. with the exception of lunch, snack, and recess. And on the secondary level, the students will get a 3-minute mask break at the end of each period. Then the bell will ring on the secondary level. They will put their masks back on and head out into the hallway to go to their next class. So we're asking families to provide the students with extra masks, 1 or 2 extra a day. It's possible for masks to get lost, to get dirty, and we want to make sure that the students have what they need. We will be providing masks if a student attempts to board a bus or come into school without a mask. And again, during the day, if they don't have a spare mask and something happens to their mask, we will absolutely supply a new mask for them. But I'm sure the students will be very comfortable with bringing in masks from home, and we encourage that. We also encourage the fact that they haven't been wearing masks for this many hours in the day, that you keep in mind that they should be washed on a regular basis. So every 1 or 2 days, the mask should be washed or a new one supplied to the student. So continuing with health and safety, if your child shows any symptoms of COVID-19 or has a fever over 100 degrees, please keep your child home from school. It is recommended that you consult your health provider to determine if COVID-19 testing is needed. If a student becomes ill during the school day, the student will be sent home. A parent, guardian, or emergency contact will be called, and we will advise you to find out from your health professional how you should proceed. The student will not be permitted back to school without a letter from the medical provider stating that they are not infected with COVID-19 and that it is safe for them to return to school activities. If a student becomes ill during the day and they're exhibiting COVID-like symptoms, all of the schools will have an isolation room, which will be right near the nurse's office. We don't want students that have COVID-19 symptoms to be in the nurse's office, because the nurse's office also handles other issues such as student injuries or medication distribution. And we want the students to be able to go about their regular business going into the nurse's office, and we can keep students that have potential symptoms separate. That isolation room will be disinfected after a student is in there and leaves. And if a student or a staff member tests positive for COVID-19, the testing lab will automatically notify the Suffolk County Department of Health. We may not get that information right away, so we are asking all families, if your child gets a positive COVID-19 result, to please notify the school. And then the district, we will work with the Department of Health to assist them with the contact tracing that needs to be done to identify who else may have been in contact with the student that tested positive for COVID-19. So as the students enter the building, they will have a temperature check either by a handheld, contactless thermometer, or a thermometer that will be mounted to the wall that also is contactless. And there will be frequent cleaning throughout the school day of all of the high traffic surfaces. Our custodians, they've been trained, they know they have a large task ahead of them, and we're very grateful for all of the work that they've been doing and will continue to do. They will be doing a deeper clean, a disinfecting after school and evenings. Barriers have been purchased for small group instruction and testing, and individual areas such as psychologist's office, social workers, guidance counselors, small group areas in elementary classrooms. So the students will still wear the mask, but they will also be able to sit a little bit closer with those barriers as additional protection. The classrooms will have the desks all facing in the same direction, K through 12, and those desks will be 6 feet apart, and they've been measured the appropriate way, edge to edge, as per New York State and Department of Health guidance. For the secondary level, since the students will be changing classes every period, we did purchase paper placemat type products that are disposable, that the students will pick up when they enter the classroom, and they can put that on their desk to so that they're not touching the same surface as the student that was in the classroom before them. There will be hand sanitizer throughout all of our buildings. Please encourage your children to use that. You may send hand sanitizer in with your child, but they're not supposed to bring hand sanitizer on the school bus. So if you want your child to have hand sanitizer, it should be dropped off. So all of our buildings are currently, the furniture is being adjusted in the classrooms so that we have the proper setup with all of the desks 6 feet apart. And once all of the furniture is, the excess furniture is moved into other places in the buildings, these hallway markings will begin to go down. And the custodians have started to do this in many of the buildings. So the hallways will be marked to control traffic flow and to promote 6 feet social distancing. There will also be other signs throughout the buildings reminding everyone to keep their mask on and to keep 6 feet apart from each other. Computer devices. We are planning to continue to loan devices to those in need. Chromebooks for grades 3 through 12, iPads for grades K through 2. Many families still have devices from the spring that we loaned at that time. That's good, keep those. We'll be notifying families shortly if we need you to bring those in for a swap. Some of our devices may need to be refreshed. We also have new devices that will be distributed. So hopefully you responded to the survey, and if you needed a device for your student, you indicated that on the survey. If you didn't indicate it on the survey, or if you didn't answer the survey, again, please call the building so that they can get that information. The silver lining in this is that we are on a path to have one-to-one devices for every student in the district, probably at the beginning of the next school year, 2021-22. We're very, very hopeful that by a year from now, we'll be back in school full-time in person, because there is no substitute for in-person instruction. And at that point, we would be able to have computer devices for every student in the district, where they would be able to bring that device back and forth between home and school so that their teachers can embed technology into their lessons more fluidly, and the students will be able to go home and use the devices to continue their learning and a more efficient way to share student work with their teachers. So we'll be working on that, and we'll also be providing parents with some workshops early on in September on how to get into Seesaw and Google Classroom so that you could support your children as well. Okay, this is the time where if you have questions for us, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen if you have a desktop, a laptop, or a cell phone. If you are using an iPad, the Q&A button is at the top of the screen. Please type your answer. We'll be reading those questions aloud and answering them. So, stop share. And Ms. Stevenson is our moderator.
Hi. So our first question is, my daughter will be in 2nd grade at Aquabog this year. Will the teachers be doing a live meeting with the students during check-in time, or is this a messenger type meeting?
In all of the K-6 buildings, there will be a live meeting for the hybrid students that are on their remote days, and that will be through Google Meet. It will be live. We understand that not every family will be available during the time that live meet will happen. It'll be 20 to 30 minutes long in length. So it is okay if a child misses that meet, as long as they log in through their platform of Seesaw or Google Classroom, they'll still get attendance credit that day, and all of the work will be still in the platform for the student to complete. If they're on full virtual instruction on the elementary level K-6, that there will be a teacher assigned to the students for the full day, and that teacher will do a combination of recorded lessons as well as Google Meet check-ins, perhaps with the full class, perhaps with small groups of students. That will be determined by the teacher and based on the needs of the students in the class.
My son is going into 9th grade. If he's in cohort 2, will he have to log into the Google Classroom the first day of school, September 3rd, Or does he wait until he goes in person to get instructions from the teacher first?
Mr. O'Hara, I don't know if you want to answer it or I'll answer it. It's up to you.
Yes, of course. So all high school students will receive their schedules on the first day of school. Shortly after that, if they are not in person with the first cohort, they will receive an email or a message from their teacher or their teachers to join the Google Classrooms with a Google Classroom code, and the communication will begin on day one. What instruction looks like for the first week, I would imagine it's going to be a lot of procedure and protocol, and then ease into the curriculum for the year.
Thank you. And Dr. Hudson, that would be similar for the middle school as well?
Yes, absolutely, exactly that way, yes.
Thank you.
There's some appreciation for our hard work. Thank you all so much for your hard work. I appreciate everything you've done to keep my daughter safe. My question is pertaining to the SCOPE program. I know that they are responsible for their own reentry plan, but I just wanted to know if you know anything about it with regards to drop-off and pickup, since it is at Phillips. Do you know if this information will be sent home with the teacher letter, or if you, will be sent home with the teacher letter if you don't know at this moment?
Ms. Tono, if you want me, I can take that one for you.
Thanks, Ms. Rogers.
Sure. We've been in contact with SCOPE. Their plan mirrors our plan and what we are doing here in Riverhead Central School District. For students that are in the AM program, they will be dropped off with our regular K-4 students in the same way that we've done it in the past. We are adding additional entrances to help keep kids distant from one another. If you're picking your child up from the AM session, it will be in the north lot, or we call it the side lot there. And also the PM students, when they come in, we're going to be utilizing that side lot as well. But that information will go home with the students. In addition to, it will be posted on our website.
Thank you.
Will the playgrounds be sanitized after each class uses the playgrounds?
Mr. Jacobellis?
Unfortunately, due to the virus, we will not be using the playgrounds during recess or outside play.
Thank you.
Will the same nurse who deals with non-COVID-like symptoms deal with those who have COVID-like symptoms?
Mr. Culhane?
They very well may. They've been provided with the proper PPE, which is gowns, gloves, masks, and face shields. So if they do have to deal with a child that is potentially exposed to COVID, because we cannot diagnose for COVID, they will have the proper protection, and they will also be able to protect the children in their charges by changing from room to room.
Thank you.
Will temperatures be checked before they board the bus?
No, unfortunately, we can't set it up the protocol that way, because once a student is at the bus stop and the bus arrives, we are responsible for the student. So we need to make sure the student gets to where they need to be. And so the students will get on the bus, they will be wearing masks on the bus. Siblings or household students will be sitting in the seats together, but then everyone else, for the most part, will be in a separate seat with masks on, windows open as often as possible. And when they get off of the bus, that's when the temperature checks will occur. So that's why it's very important that families should also be checking their children every morning for symptoms. It's encouraged to do a temperature check at home. And if the student does have a fever or is exhibiting symptoms, don't even put them on the bus. Please just keep them home, call the school, let the school know they'll be absent, and take them to a health provider.
It'll be also a good opportunity here to mention that for most part, our buses will have 21 or 22 kids on board. As Ms. Tono mentioned, if there are siblings on the same bus, those students will sit together, so we'll be able to have a few more students on the bus. But we are structuring the bus route so that there's one child per seat and no more. The drivers will have disposable masks available for the students if they come to the stop without their mask. But all students must wear their masks on the bus, as Ms. Tono said. And the other thing is we will encourage students to keep the windows on the bus open to increase circulation on the bus as long as the weather allows.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Good evening. Thank you for everything you've done to get our children back to school and all the hard work that you've done. The question is, if my elementary age child, K through 4th grade, will be attending full virtual, what will the class size be? I know the hybrid students are expected to be 12 to 15 students.
The maximum class size for a full virtual class will be 25.
What are the report card months for seniors?
Did I have them right before, Mr. O'Hara?
So that's a great question. Without the calendar in front of me, November, February, April, and June. It should be the same for all buildings. Principals, how am I doing?
They're nodding and smiling. Thank you.
How do we get Chromebooks for our high school students?
If you indicated on the survey that you needed that for your child, then the buildings have that information. If you didn't, please call the buildings and they'll collect that information from you.
And then a question about what day and time to pick up a Chromebook for if anyone needs one. But
Yeah, we're developing a schedule for that. We don't have the schedule yet.
No hand sanitizer on the bus. Why is that?
New York State regulations prohibit any type of alcohol-based liquid on a bus, which includes our hand sanitizers. That's the law. We cannot supersede that. If you want to have your child bring it in, they can drop it off at the school and we'll make sure that they get it.
Is Optimum making Wi-Fi available to students and families at a discounted rate? And if so, how do we connect to that service offering?
At this time, we're not aware of any discounts that Optimum is offering. However, if you do need Wi-Fi in your house, to again let your principal know, we will be loaning out Wi-Fi mobile hotspots. And if you're borrowing a device, we are purchasing additional devices that have built-in Wi-Fi capability, as well as plans for those devices that for families that need Wi-Fi access. So just let us know.
Okay, Ms. Tona, you were handed quite a mess by the outgoing superintendent. I want to be reassured that my child who has sensory issues will not be subject to disciplinary action. Also, will my child receive services such as OT-PT at my child's daycare facility? Finally, will the children be able to have any meaningful social interaction at recess, or will they be separated by 6 feet social distance monitors?
Thank you for your question. Yes, if a child has sensory issues and the school is aware of a situation that the child needs additional support and guidance, we're not looking to punish children. We're looking to help children and help them advance and thrive in the school setting. So just like in person, there were providers that would help students with their needs, and we know that students have varying needs. We're going to have those opportunities as well in the hybrid model as well as the full virtual model. Our special education department is working very hard to make sure that they meet everyone's IEP goals as best as we can. And we are also considering another parent forum next week or the week after where we can provide answers to questions that special education families have. So yes, OT-PT services will be provided. That's a question I think is best asked directly to Mrs. Mazzaferro if you want to give her a call, because I'm not familiar with your child's specific IEP needs. And we are providing virtual therapy sessions. I don't know what your daycare, childcare facility setup is, so that may be a challenge. Mrs. Mazzaferro is on the call now.
Hi, sorry, little connection problem. So it is going to depend on the center where your child is and their programming. We are trying to schedule all our OT and PT services when children are in person. So if they're in person for 2 days of the cycle, that's when we're going to try to schedule them. We do also have a virtual option. So, you know, we'll work with parents to try to make sure that they get that service at a time that's going to work for them. And we can be a little bit flexible in that time. So that's our goal with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Mazzaferro.
And then as far as that last piece about recess, I'm working with the principals to see if there's a way that we can have the children get out and expend some of that energy that they build up during the day and when they're on recess. Per the New York State guidelines, when you're outside, the mask is needed when you're close to somebody, even if it's less than 6 feet. So there's no reason that the children can't play. We're just trying to figure out a way that they can play where there's no contact and they can expend that energy that they build up during the day. So we're working on ways that we can do that in a meaningful fashion rather than just have them go outside and stand in a box to get fresh air.
Thank you.
Will the children in elementary be sharing supplies?
No. Would any of our elementary principals like to jump in?
What we're trying to do is set it up so that the students have individual supplies. You will be getting supply lists from the principals regarding what the teachers have requested for the students to have. But unfortunately, you know, due to trying to limit shared surfaces and items, we will not be having the bin on the table where you can grab an extra pencil or anything like that. Students will be responsible for their own school supplies and there will be no sharing of them.
Thank you.
Some appreciation. Thank you for all of your thoughtfulness and sacrifices to make school safe for faculty and students. I have a question about the days of attendance for each cohort in the 7 through 12 grades. Will the cohort attendance schedule skip weekends and school holidays in the count or include them?
It will only include Monday through Friday, non-holidays. So all of the principals have calendars ready to go that will help simplify the process. So once you know what cohort your child is in, you'll be able to access that calendar and know exactly when they need to be in school.
Will there be any technology help for parents learning a new platform or shortcuts taught for Seesaw and Google Classroom?
Yes, we'll be providing sessions for parents, and we can record those sessions, and we could also have sessions in the evening. So we anticipate having parent sessions on a regular basis, not just front-loaded in the beginning. We know that other issues will come up throughout this time that we have hybrid and virtual instruction. So yes, we'll be sending details out soon.
And then there's another question on the same topic, but wondering if
I answered that whole thing.
Going to be nighttime as well.
Right, and I answered that.
You said that, okay.
Mm-hmm.
For remote-only students, how would music classes work, such as orchestra?
Mr. Rothkamp.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Nice to see everybody. So the plan is, if a student is going completely remotely, the idea is whatever cohort they would have been a part of, the plan is that hopefully they'll be able to follow along with that cohort. And if the time exists as we get into this new territory, hopefully there'll be time for some more unique interaction between the teacher and the student to help push them along as well, because they won't necessarily be in with the students. But this will be a continually evolving situation, and we will keep assessing as we go along, hopefully to get the students as involved as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Rothkamp. And thank you, everyone. We went through all the questions that were asked tonight. I want to truly thank everyone on this call for their assistance, to their willingness to do everything they possibly can for the students of Riverhead. I would like to thank all of the community members, teachers, administrators, staff members who have been part of all of our planning meetings, and there have been a lot of them, and they will continue as we move into the school year. This is a joint effort. This was not one person's decision. This was a difficult process, but you can see by looking at all the faces on your screen right now that we are all here for all of the children of Riverhead. We appreciate the support and the patience of all of our families, and we look forward to the day that we can all meet again in person, and we will celebrate that day. But until then, thank you all. Be well. Have a good night.